Now, the most reasonable talk show host from Sop Choppy to the Redneck Riviera, here is Bob Kerrigan.
All right, Collin, you there?
Yeah, how you doing, Bob? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing fine. Collin Laverty is the program associate at the Center for Democracy in the Americas. I know because I've traveled with Collin in the past. He's fluent in Spanish and a veteran traveler to Central and South America, and particularly Cuba. Collin double majored in political science and Latin American and Caribbean studies at the College of Charleston, South Carolina, where he graduated with honors, and he's associated with the Center for Democracy in the Americas. Now, Collin, that said, got your smiling face on the screen there. Tell us a little bit about the Center for the Democracies in America. Then I want to ask you about our interesting Cuba policy.
All right. Well, we are a nonprofit. We work to change U.S. policy toward the countries of the Americas. Here at the Center for Democracy in the Americas, we believe that our relations with the countries in the region and throughout the world should be based on mutual respect and what's beneficial, obviously, for the United States, but also for the countries in the region. We believe dialogue is essential to good relations, and isolationist policies do not produce positive results. With that being said, we work mainly with on Cuba policy. That's how our work got started because of the embargo and the whole political situation between Cuba and the United States. And our work started through a freedom to travel campaign, fighting for the rights of both U.S. citizens and Cuban Americans to travel, which under the current policy is not possible. They cannot visit Cuba when they wish to do so. So that's a little bit about the Center for Democracy in the Americas.
And Collin, you all take members of Congress and official delegations from the United States to Cuba, as you're permitted to do. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the most essential part of our work, is bringing U.S. policymakers on fact-finding missions to the region and letting them see experience the country firsthand, and then they can analyze and decide whether our policy is, in fact, effective in achieving the goals that it set out to accomplish.
Collin, is it fair to say that the Center for Democracy in America is not really a political organization because you don't get involved in protests or sanctions or anything like that? Your involvement there is to, as you said, create a dialogue and a discussion about Cuban policy and what is in the best interest of the United States. I just want to make sure our viewers are
Yeah, that's 100% correct. We just believe we're an advocate in a public education campaign about what's best in terms of U.S. policy for U.S. citizens and then also for people in the region.
And I know, Collin, on the trips that I've been with you and with Sarah, who's the director there, we've actually met with dissidents and had discussions with people who are on the dissident or dissenting side in Cuba that are attempting to change Cuba from within in terms of making it more democratic. I thought that was very enriching personally, and so you do include that, I guess, in the criteria of
Yeah. As I said,
trips.
we try and we're just creating space and creating space for people to make decisions based on their own experience, and so we try and allow whoever we bring on our delegations to meet with a vast array of people. Everybody from opposition to government officials to everyday people, and that's what we like to stress. I mean, academics, scientists, etc.
Collin, we've seen in the news the last, 3 or 4 weeks, the terrible devastation to the island from 2 major hurricanes. Can you tell us, from what you're able to gather now coming from sources in Cuba, how bad is it there after these 2 big hurricanes?
It's unfortunately the damage is immense. As you know, Hurricane Gustav was the first last week that went through and affected the western part of the island, going over the Isle of Youth and then Pinar del Rio, which is the tobacco region. And luckily, there was no, thanks to Cuba's hurricane preparedness and response, there was no deaths reported, just minor injuries. But there was very, very serious damage to infrastructure, to housing, electricity grids, etc. And that damage was estimated at up to $5 billion. And before Cuba really had a chance to recover or respond, Hurricane Ike made landfall in Cuba. This time on the eastern side of the island on Sunday, worked its way across, affecting agriculture, housing, basically everything on the eastern side. and then cut south and made its way over the Isle of Youth, not directly, but then went directly at Pinar del Rio again. So a lot of the buildings that were left, partially standing, were just completely destroyed. And the UN's estimated that damage at $4 billion. And this time, unfortunately, there were four casualties that were reported.
Can you tell us the legal ways in which relief can be channeled to the island to help the Cuban people recover?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Actually, on our website, democracyinamericas.org, there's a link there for hurricane relief, and that identifies 6 organizations that we've identified. It's democracyinamericas.org, and that includes Global Links, Operation USA, Medic, Catholic Relief Services, Jewish Solidarity, Daughters of Charity, and the Disarm Educational Fund. And they all have Treasury licenses to assist Cuba with whether it's food, medical. They all vary, and I encourage people to look at those and determine which ones interest them the most. So that's one way to help. Unfortunately, due to the relationship between the United States and Cuba, usually when aid's offered, the Cuban government has offered aid to the United States in response to disasters. Following Katrina and also September 11th, they were very generous in offering certain medical teams to come and assist. And then also the United States has made offers for in response to hurricanes in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's politicized, whereas Haiti's receiving a lot of money right now, I believe up to $10 million. The U.S. has yet to get any money to the Cuban government due to the political situation.
Well, Collin, thank you so much. Before you finish, I would like our viewers to know the activities of other countries in Cuba, joint venturing, all kinds of things. Now, we have limited agricultural dealings with Cuba, correct?
Correct, we do. And that was actually a result. It's important that you said that because that was a result of 2001. There was a bad hurricane that hit Cuba, and the United States offered aid, and the Cuban government responded by saying, we appreciate your offer, but the embargo is what's really restricting our cash flow, and it would help us if you would just sell us food and medicine. And so there was some tweaking done to the embargo, and after that, the agricultural sales were then allowed. The licensing process is complicated, and it's been further complicated since 2004. Restrictions in place by this administration, but there is trade, and that was the case again. The United States did offer $100,000 to the Cubans, and the Cuban government responded by saying, thank you very much for the kind offer, but we'd appreciate if you loosened the embargo and let us buy some of the indispensable supplies that we really need.
Well, in fairness to the Bush administration, and there have been negative comments and whatever, but that one little tweak in 2001 has been important for the United States and our agricultural industry, and of course important for the people of Cuba. So we ought to be fair about that and say,
oh yeah, and I agree, and that's our point is we stress policy should be based on what's good for both sides, and that adjustment has been very good for farmers in the United States who need those sales, and it's been good for the Cuban people who can buy products at a cheaper price from the United States than if they have to look over to Europe or other countries in Latin America.
Well, Collin, thank you very much. Collin Laverty from the Center for Democracy in the Americas. Keep up the good work. My regards to Sarah and the staff, and keep on plugging. We're going to see a change one day when we'll all be able to go to Cuba, and where the Cuban people will be free to come to the United States. The Cuban people have an amazing affinity and love for people in the United States, don't they, Collin?
They really do, and I know that you can attest to that after our trip in April, and I believe you've been there in the past. And there's no loss of love between the Cuban people and the U.S. people on either end, and that's what I think the majority of people in the United States and the majority of people in Cuba really want, to have a normal relationship one day.
I hope that will happen. And Collin, as I say, keep up the good work, and we're pleased to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks so much, Bob.
All
Take it
right,
easy.
Collin Laverty and the Center for the Democracies in America.